All right, so we're back and ready to wrap things up. Our deep dive into plant guilds, that is. We've been going through this handbook, really getting into the nitty gritty. And now we're at the part where they kind of step back, look at the big picture, you know?
Oh, absolutely. The key takeaways and where things might go from here. It's always exciting.
Right. And they start off really hammering home this point about synergy, how everything's got to work together. Like, we get it, different plants, different roles. But what really made it click for me was this case study. They had this guild struggling in a dry climate, soil erosion, the whole 9 yards. But they added this ground cover, like something most people wouldn't even think twice about. And boom, totally transformed the guild's health.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Totally. It's like even the littlest things.
Exactly. You know, it shows how connected everything is. It's not just about picking the stars, the big flashy plants. It's about understanding those subtle relationships, especially when you're dealing with a tough environment.
Yeah, makes you realize how much we still have to learn from nature. Speaking of learning, they get into some pretty cool advanced techniques. One that caught my eye was this chop and drop mulching with nitrogen fixing trees, no less. They were talking about using specific species like Siberian pea shrub.
Oh, yeah, and autumn olive.
Right. Creating this living mulch system, constantly feeding the soil.
The handbook uses those as perfect examples, you know, how to pick the right plant for the right job. It's not just any nitrogen fixer, right? It's got to thrive in your climate, provide extra benefits like that mulch.
That's what I like about this handbook. It gets into the details. There's straight up, guilds can be a lot of work, especially if you've got a lot going on. But then they give you all these strategies to make it easier. Perennial veggies, less replanting, self-seeding annuals for ground cover.
Right, it's all about planning ahead.
Exactly. So you're not running around like crazy later.
Design is key.
You know what surprised me, though? Their stance on pesticides. They're like, absolutely not, no chemicals whatsoever. I get the organic thing, but like, isn't there ever a time for a little intervention? Say you've got a massive infestation threatening the whole guild, what then?
Well, they do address that. They really push preventative measures, attract beneficial insects, build a healthy ecosystem. So those pest populations never get out of control.
So it's like a long game.
Exactly. Building resilience instead of quick fixes.
Really makes you think.
It challenges those conventional ideas about gardening.
Okay, so we've got biodiversity, design, maintenance, but where's this all heading? You know, the future of guild planting. They actually spent a good chunk of the handbook on that.
And it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, they seem to see this going way beyond backyards.
Oh, absolutely. Like, picture this. Guilds in urban landscapes, changing the way we design our cities.
Rooftop gardens, packed with edible guilds, providing food for people living in cities.
Exactly. And not just rooftops. Think about streets. Whole streetscapes designed as food forests, with guilds attracting pollinators, managing runoff, even cleaning the air.
That's wild.
And they go even further. They suggest these guild principles could be used for community development too, building stronger connections between people and nature.
So it's not just about plants then.
It's a whole new perspective.
It makes you wonder, could we apply this to our communities too? That synergy, that interdependence. Could we build social structures that function more like a thriving guild?
That is a fascinating thought. It's like the handbook is giving us a framework for a more sustainable, more harmonious way of living.
I like that.
It's pretty inspiring. Yeah, it really gets you thinking, how could we scale this up? You know, take it from backyards to something bigger. And the good thing is they don't just talk about it theoretically, they actually go into some real world examples.
Right, like that project in Seattle, the Beacon Food Forest.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
A 7-acre park, all edible, designed using guild planting. It's incredible. The pictures in the handbook, wow. Fruit trees, berries, herbs, veggies, all thriving together.
It's a perfect example, you know, how to apply these principles in a real setting. Create a community space, provide food, education. That connection to nature, it's all there.
And it's not just Seattle. They talk about projects popping up everywhere. London, Singapore, all over.
It's a movement, it's gaining traction.
And they make a strong case for why it matters, especially now, with climate change, food security, all that.
Right, building more resilient systems.
Less reliant on industrial agriculture, more in tune with local ecosystems.
Exactly, mimicking nature's diversity.
So we can handle those extreme weather events, changing seasons.
And empower communities to grow their own food.
It's a whole different model. But, you know, as I was reading about all this, I did wonder about the challenges. Scaling up from a garden to like a city, that's got to take a ton of coordination, right?
Oh, absolutely. They talk about that. The hurdles, building partnerships, collaboration.
gardeners, planners, organizations, everyone working together,
Yeah, it's a shift in thinking.
away from those siloed approaches, towards something more integrated, more holistic.
Exactly. And they point to some groups already doing this, like the Permaculture Research Institute.
Oh, right, with a training program.
Education, resources, it's all important.
And they were talking about regional seed banks, too,
Yes,
and nurseries specializing in guild-friendly plants.
that's key. Access to the right materials. And it goes beyond just plants. Research, knowledge sharing, that's crucial too.
Refining techniques, figuring out what works best.
Adapting to change, it's an ongoing process.
So it's like a whole support system,
Not just for the plants, but for the people too.
and that's where that community aspect comes back in.
Full circle.
Yeah, it's not just changing the landscape, it's about strengthening those social bonds.
Building a deeper connection.
I love that idea.
It's powerful
Like we're planting seeds for a better future.
for ourselves and the planet.
Absolutely. For me, it's that connection to community building. Let me talk about synergy with plants, right? But I keep thinking, could we do the same thing with people? Could a whole neighborhood work like a guild? Everyone contributing, helping each other out.
It's a really interesting idea. It gets to the heart of what this book's about. It's bigger than just plants,
Right. And it's not all theory either. They give actual examples of how it's being done. Like, remember that section on the Forest Garden Network?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
People sharing knowledge, resources, supporting each other.
It's like a real-life guild, but with people.
And they talk about empowering communities, too, especially those who might not have easy access to fresh food.
Right. Providing opportunities, reconnecting people with the land.
It's like there's this social justice aspect to it all.
Absolutely. It goes beyond just the environmental benefits.
And they even mention the therapeutic side of things. Gardening as a way to heal, to cope with trauma.
Yeah, that connection to nature can be so powerful.
Resilience.
And as we've talked about, there are challenges. Planning, observation, being willing to adapt. It's not always easy.
And sometimes things just go wrong. But even then, there's something to learn. Like that story about the garden that lost all those fruit trees to that late frost, remember?
Oh, yeah, that was tough.
But they didn't give up. They used it as a chance to start over, make it even better, more resilient.
It shows you challenges can lead to innovation.
It's all about the journey, right?
Exactly, and that's what makes this book so good. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It's about principles, guidelines that you can adapt.
To your own situation, your own needs.
It's a different way of thinking.
Okay, so as we wrap up here, there's one last thing I wanted to share. A quote from the book that really resonated with me. It goes like this. In the garden, as in life, we learn that true abundance comes not from domination, but from collaboration.
That's beautiful.
It really sums it all up. The whole idea of synergy, interdependence, working with nature, not against it.
It's a message we could all use right now.
So on that note, we'll leave you to think about all this. Happy gardening, everyone. And may your guilds thrive.